Yo, yo, how's it going? Hope you're having a good week so far. Today's episode is with Andy Daniell. Andy is currently A&R at FFRR Records, which is an iconic record label from the UK dating back for the last 33 years. Great conversation. Loved it. I've known Andy for a few years, so we've got to catch up, which is nice over coronavirus. Also learned a lot about A&R and it's super informal on the whole process of releasing records, signing records and all of that. So without further ado, Andy Daniell, how's it going, mate? We're live.
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Pretty good.
We're live.
It's a Sunday evening.
Yeah, man.
And end of August.
I've got to squeeze these things in, man. It's like the week is busy.
I know, right?
Weekend's family time, so got squeezing things like this in the gaps.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
Yeah, good, man. It's been pretty chilled. I'm trying to think what I did. I have the worst memory. Unless it's written down or I look at my calendar, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Nice, man.
I think I was in a soft play or something today.
Rock and roll.
That sounds familiar.
Are they open?
Yeah, they're just reopened, but you've got like pre-book and fun stuff like that. 2020 is weird.
Dude, it's such a messed up year, right?
Mate, I used to do interesting and fun things. Now I do that. And that's like the highlight of my week.
Yeah. I was literally just FaceTiming one of my friends and I was like, she was like, what are you up to this week? I was like, same as last week and the same as the week before and the same as the week before. It's just not much.
To be fair though, actually this in a positive way, there's actually been one of the more kind of normal-ish weeks I've had, like kind of since lockdown began, because it's like on Wednesday, like physically went to go and see an artist I'm looking at signing.
Oh, cool.
Spent some time with them, which was amazing. And Thursday was like a video shoot, but much more in the way you would have done a video shoot. You're not doing home shooting anymore. You can kind of do shoots out and about, obviously very, very kind of COVID considered, but that was good. And then on Friday, just went and did like a physical meeting with some people that I'm working with, but sitting outside distance, but actually having that proper interaction with someone, not just the Zoom conversation. It's kind of like the majority of your interactions at the moment. So it was kind of nice. It was like a very balanced, safe, but also kind of productive week, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does feel like things are kind of progressing a little forward with kind of, because I was in the studio a couple of weeks ago in London, and it just felt last week actually. Oh no, the week before.
Oh, so you back in the UK?
I've been in the UK since March, mate.
Oh, mate, I thought you were in the States.
No, I've been back here since since
16
March.
The Union Jack cushion in the background is maybe a clue, but I didn't know if that was a little memento from home or just remember. No, that's just home.
Yeah, no, I'm back in my place in the UK. So
nice.
Yeah, to be fair,
maybe a better place to be. Who knows?
Yeah, much better. And that's no disrespect to America, but
not at all. No. I don't mean that for a second.
Much nicer to be. To be fair, it's been I haven't been home for this long in 6 years. So it's nice I live like next door to my parents, so I can go and see them whenever, and it's just been
amazing.
Super chill, man. Super chill. Anyway, man.
Yes. Sorry, that was a weird old intro.
A&R. So
yes,
I've known you for years. I don't know how long have I known you?
I'm trying to think. I was kind of slightly trying to think about that earlier. I mean, it's definitely a chunk, but I'm the worst person to kind of put a time on something. It was like, I just don't know. It's just like, long time.
I think it was spandex suit days.
Yeah, I mean, but I think even before that.
Yeah, we did.
I don't know how. We've met each other a few times, or like been intro. I was trying to work out. I do think it's the beard was in existence by that time.
Oh, was it?
I don't think I ever met you. I don't think I ever met you pre-beard.
So yeah, that was probably
just looked at the photos
7 years ago. the world's famous photos. It's even worse when you turn up to a show or like a festival and somebody's got a picture of you on a totem pole without a beard, and everyone is like,
sick.
No one knows who it is, so they're like, who's this random person?
Who's that guy?
Yeah, who is that guy?
And you'll just be on stage just going, just please,
why?
no,
Why?
stop that.
Yeah, exactly. But
so yeah, let's say 7 years.
Yeah, let's say 7 years. So I met you when you were at Defected, and
Yeah.
you've not long moved from Defected to FFRR.
Yes.
Like, for people that don't know what an A&R does, what do you do? That's
a really loaded question.
I know, but it's probably, your roles have probably changed quite a lot from Defected to FFRR, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, in a heartbeat, like, A&R stands for artist and repertoire. And essentially what I would say it means is like you're the person that, tries to go and find music for the record label, develops relationships with artists. If you want to sign a record, you're the one that kind of brings it in and signs it. But then also once the record's signed, you are the kind of conduit and voice between the artist and the label.
Yeah.
You know why you've signed something. So then you kind of are communicating back to your team internally about what you're trying to achieve, where it should be placed, et cetera, et cetera. So you're kind of like, the artist creates the music. The A&R then will kind of identify work with the artist to then deliver it to market. I guess is kind of one way of distilling it, but it's a really multi-nuanced job, I guess.
Okay, so
it can be very, very involved, and it can be quite lean back. It really depends. Literally every artist and kind of project and interaction is different.
Okay, that makes sense, because I guess the way it always works for me is like, I'll send a record to a label manager or an A&R or something like that, and then they're like yay or nay, and then it gets signed, and then it kind of gets released, obviously with all the like marketing and everything like that in between, and kind of the planning. But how involved are you on the actual releases when it comes to finding the record, saying you're going to sign it, then are you literally just the talks person, or are you kind of the label manager to a certain extent? I don't know.
No, A&R will quite often work very closely with like a marketing manager.
Okay.
Because it's quite often like a bit of a team.
Yeah.
Or certainly what I'm doing moving forward is very much working under that basis where, look, as I say, if I've identified something that I really want to work with, or an artist I want to work with or target or whatever, there's a reason for that. And then I'll work closely with a marketing manager as to be like, okay, we've got this raw product or this record, and I kind of think in my head, we can do X, Y, Z with it. How do we actually go and do that? My target for a record can be wildly varying. It could be like, oh, I think this is a Beatport top 10. Okay, so if it's Beatport top 10, it's like, okay, we want to speak to Beatport, target a banner, make sure we get charts in the old world, club footage, how we're going to do it on socials, etc. But there's a kind of method to how we would approach getting that target.
Yeah.
If it's like we think this is a number one chart record, very different process.
Yeah.
It may still involve something like Beatport, but that's kind of like literally step one of about 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but if I was just to kind of put two records on the table to a marketing manager with no context, like they don't know necessarily that that's kind of what we've got in our head or our expectations or what we're trying to achieve with a project. That and also that will be in communication with the artist about what they want to achieve and what's also realistic or not as well.
Yeah, definitely. So what's the roles like? You started at Defected a long time ago. When were you at Defected?
I started as kind of work experience in 2004.
Damn.
So a long time ago.
So how did you kind of turn into because you were like head A&R there, right? At Defected.
It was like A&R manager, yeah, working.
So
really
how did that kind of come on? Like, did you go in, or did you like wake up one morning and be like, I want to be A&R, or is it just like a role that you?
No, man, I wanted to be an artist.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to make music and DJ.
Yeah.
But as time went on, I was like, I enjoy DJing, but I wouldn't say like I'm the world's greatest DJ. Like, there's a lot about it I love. There's a lot about it I find quite challenging. I never loved the travel.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't mind it. I'm really grateful I got to travel the world when I did it, but I always found it, I never kind of 1,000% loved it, and I think you've really got to 1,000% love it. You look, you know what it's like. You do those gigs that soul destroying. Like I kind of really took them to heart.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Not every gig is about Wicked Festival that you're buzzed about. There are a lot of gigs that are not that. And I was also kind of slightly, because I wasn't making music really of any note, I kind of was never the reason for the gig in a lot of respects. And again, you get a hot record or people actually know your music, it's a bit more involved. I was kind of just the guy that just happened to be there a little bit.
Okay.
And that's a kind of slightly different dynamic.
Yeah.
And then also, like, when it came to making music, like, I had a ton of ideas, but I just couldn't get them out.
Yeah.
Like, and I kind of needed someone to work with. I never quite found that person.
Yeah.
And then, like, I was just hearing all this music that other people were making, and and I wouldn't say it's like a defeatist thing, but I was just like, I could never make that record, because I know what it's like to sit in front of a computer with a blank screen, lots of machines around, and where it's like literally the blank canvas. It's quite a daunting thing at that moment. And then to get from that blank canvas to this end product that like someone else had made, like, it was actually a Dennis Ferrer record. I was just like, game over, mate. Like, even if I did this all day, every day, I don't think I'm ever making something like that. However, I was very good at, or I really enjoyed and felt good at, like, if I heard a piece of music, I could tell you a lot about that piece of music. And I mean, like, I think you should do this, or that's great, or that's not, or whatever. So it's just like, at that time, I was kind of like developing that other side, like, professionally. And I decided, instead of like trying to chase XYZ things, just really focus on one thing and just try and be very, very good at that. And kind of put all of my energy into one direction, rather than kind of like trying to do that, but also just trying to keep like a bit of a DJ career or whatever. And I just tried to really focus.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is focusing. Because I think for me, especially in my career, is like the minute I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, is when my career kind of started to kind of kick off a little bit. And I think it's that not fanning about doing lots of different things and trying to be the best at everything, and concentrate literally on one thing and be like, okay, I know that I could be good at this, but it's going to take some time, and let's just put all of my eggs into one basket and just go for it. I think that's kind of the rules of life, right?
But it just takes time to kind of know what that is. I don't think that kind of happens overnight. You've got to walk a journey to kind of get that point. I think it's quite rare, or you're just exceptional at one thing and it's very natural or whatever. But I definitely had to kind of walk around a little bit, like, so to speak, to kind of figure out what felt right and what I maybe was best at. I mean, look, I could have been an amazing DJ, but I kind of, other stuff didn't really connect like in the same way, so whatever. But also the really useful thing was, by doing all of those other things, all of that contextualized hugely the other side of things, like the A&R side of things. So I've been in the studio, I have made records, so I can talk to a producer on a level, because I know the process. It's I'm not kind of going like, oh, can you pump it up a little bit? It's like, nah, like the hi-hat that comes in 16 bars in needs to come up by about a dB, or just the synth sweep at 44 seconds, like, take that out. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more detailed. Sometimes I will keep it quite broad and do a few cliches.
I was about to ask you that. Like, there's an A&R relationship that producers and A&Rs have, and most producers are like it. And don't get me wrong, this is usually like major record label kind of A&R that.
Hello, that's me.
Yeah, that's you now. So what you're doing now is like, how many arguments have you had where you think something should happen in a record and the artist is like, absolutely not?
The thing is, ultimately, it's the artist's record. It's not my record. So I have to be respectful to that. I'll have a robust conversation. You know what I mean? Like, my life would be easier if everything that people turned in, I accepted. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't really love doing 26 versions of something. Do you know what I mean? But I'm doing it for a reason. It's because I genuinely want the piece of audio that comes out to be the best piece of audio it can possibly be.
Totally.
And if I can see room for improvement, or if I think the artist, will benefit from being pushed, or whatever the feedback may be, then I will do it, because I think it's the best for the project. But there's also a balance. There's loads of factors that contribute to that. It's like, how important is the particular thing you're working on in the big scheme of things? Like, the art is how they respond to it, and do they start hitting kind of walls and just they're not seeing, you can definitely get kind of like lost in the woods.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? You
definitely.
can't kind of work out, you go down a path, but you kind of go like, oh shit, what were we trying to achieve again? So you've got to be sensitive to all that kind of stuff, and some artists are just like straight up no. And then I just have to make a call whether I would still want to proceed with whatever it was, from a business point of view or whatever. So it's really multifaceted. The last thing I ever try and do is just, fuck about with something for the sake of it.
Change
like,
record,
I just won't do that.
Yeah, because I think also a lot of it's about the relationship between the artist and you, or the A&R or the label or anything like that. Because I think classic example for me is like I signed a record with True Soul ages ago, and Adam was like, yeah, this is great, signed it. And then in the back of my head, I was like, this isn't the best record. It's all right, but it's not the best record. But fuck it, let's just see, if you know what I mean. Which isn't the best attitude to have. And I think you learn more and more as you go along. But then a couple of months later, Adam like hit us back and was like, I've been playing it and it's just not right. And I was like, oh, thank you. I'm glad you're like on the same wavelength. Have you ever got to that point where you've like, okay,
I've walked away from stuff 100%.
Yeah.
It's never a pleasant thing, but I've had deals that have been really, really, really advanced. I've walked away because ultimately, like, it's not a pleasant thing. It's not something I like to do.
Yeah.
It's not like something you choose to do, because ultimately you've wasted not only your time but someone else's time. You've maybe kind of given someone expectations that you then haven't followed through on, and that's these are people's careers and lives, and that's not a nice thing to have done. However, there's also a certain point where if I did proceed with it, I still know that I kind of have reservations or whatever, and that's ultimately not a positive thing either.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there comes a certain point where you just have to have a very adult conversation and just say, look, these are my reservations. For this reason, I'm not going to proceed with this any further.
Yeah.
As I say, it's not something I kind of would choose to do overly often, but I think it's also very important to know when to not to do something and when to also do something.
No, I totally agree. And I think sometimes that can be kind of, especially when you're working on a record for so long and you've been working on a project for so long, and I think we can all get like that. I don't know if you agree, but it's like when you've heard a record so many times, sometimes you can be like, I don't know if I like it that much, if you know what I mean. And it kind of loses it for me sometimes. And then you leave it for like a month and come back to it and be like, okay, no, I get it now. Do you ever get like that?
No, totally. Like, yeah, you can absolutely get fatigue for sure. I mean, it's doing A&R is very similar to the artistic process. Like between the artist and the A&R, you will have both most likely listened to the copyright hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And like through that process, you can be like, I still love this record as much as the first listen. Other times you're like, I need a break from this one. And like I've had one that I did recently where it went through so many iterations and versions of development, all in a really positive way. It wasn't like it ever stalled at any point, but it was just constantly, it was like almost like a 5-month evolutionary process to get to the final product. And I definitely had to have a point where, look, I believe in this thing. I really believe in everything I've been doing on it, but also I needed to not listen to it for 2 weeks, kind of come back and go, oh, thank God it's still dope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like, I've been confident through this whole process, but I just need a gap.
Break. Yeah.
It is still great.
Do you ever go to like other people that aren't in the industry for like second opinions?
Probably less so out of the industry, mainly because I do have a few people that I talk to, and obviously people within the company that I'm within, but I'll talk to in great depth a lot of the time. But quite often I just pretty much trust what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it's quite rare I kind of want an out. It's rare I wouldn't want or feel the need to actually sit there and have a conversation about something that I'm working on with a third party.
Yeah.
I'll use a ton of stuff that is obviously third party to contextualize something, be that social media, just I don't want to dwell too much on social media, but you look at, when you're working on a record, you need to understand why you're working on it.
Yeah.
Like, I might love it, but great, that's one thing. But also, like, I'm a business. Who am I actually selling it to, and how am I selling it to them?
Yeah.
And the artist proposition kind of comes into all of that, and profile numbers, all of it. It's none of it is the be all and end all, but it's all factors.
Yeah.
So it's like I try and kind of consider all of that when I'm looking at something. Like, why am I doing it?
Yeah. No, I get that. I think, do you think that's changed since moving from Defected to FFRR? Because FFRR is a major and you kind of have more, do you have more pressure?
The principles are the same. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, look, I mean, I'm the worst at self-imposing pressure, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'll probably put more pressure on myself than I have from the business.
Yeah.
But, it's there's a great fear in like not succeeding.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, no matter what, I'm giving this like everything I've got and then more on top.
Yeah.
Because at least then, if for whatever reason it doesn't work, I can kind of still look back on it and be proud of myself.
Yeah, no.
Do you know what I mean? That's the only way I can really approach it. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work. But pressure-wise, it's just a different thing. The difference between a major and a label like Defected is just the scale of potential, maybe.
Yeah.
Look, Defected is the absolute king of its lane.
Yeah.
It owns the lane that it does.
Yeah.
And there's no one better on the planet at that. And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But there is also an entire world of music out there beyond that.
Yeah.
And
totally.
so, I can do a few things that maybe overlap slightly with that lane. But, now instead of kind of operating and being, top of the pile in a relatively narrow bit, I can now play on the entire playing field.
How does that feel? Because it must be amazing.
Also, like it is. It's daunting, but also amazing because just because you've suddenly, I don't know, like I'm not like good at analogies. Like, I don't even really like football or whatever. But it's like you're a striker or something.
Yeah.
And now you're suddenly playing defense. Just because you're good at one thing, it doesn't necessarily mean you're good at another. So it's like my approach has been, I'm kind of making like a slow turn, like a boat, rather than like a handbrake turn.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I definitely have, and I'm already in the process of definitely moving out of the areas that I know with my signings and certain things that I'm working on. But I think if you just try and do it overnight, you may get burnt.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of kind of understanding of areas you're maybe less of an expert in, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just it takes a minute to get there, and also just scale of opportunity, the things that you have at your disposal. You just have to. I think what I've kind of learned is thinking bigger.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like, that took a minute. But I think it feels good now.
How did you get to that point in? This is deep. This is deep, man. How did you get to that point in your life where you're like, think bigger? Because I let me kind of like add on to that, because I think in the dance music realm, in house music, right? House music, techno, and this isn't a bad thing, but I think it's a very insular kind of industry where it's, you do this, and if you go here or you go here, it's risky that you're not going to be able to carry on doing this in your lane, if you know what I mean. So when did you get to the point?
Well, trust me, I already know, like I've had a lot of experience in that dynamic.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of the records that we had success with over the years started out as underground records with underground artists that then got commercially successful.
Yeah.
And a lot of those artists were like, oh my God, what's happening? Oh shit, this is terrifying. I'm never going to get to play XYZ club again.
Yeah.
Oh my God, fuck, like freak out. And was never really the case. My point is like, there is a huge difference between commercial and popular.
Yeah.
Right. So Camel Fat Cola is the perfect example of this. So the demo that I got in, I took a bridge out. That's the only change that was ever made to that record.
Yeah.
There was a bridge element that I took out to keep just a little bit to take it one step more simplistic than the original version, and an edit for radio. Mixdown was never changed. Like the sonics, nothing changed ever. And that record went on to sell a couple of million, Grammy nominated, Ivor Novello nominated. Okay, so that was not a commercial record, that was a popular record.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? It wasn't made, they weren't trying to make a record that did that, but it still did it. What a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, so you created a piece of art, and surely you want that to be heard by people.
Totally.
So that was that.
Yeah.
Manifest.
I totally agree.
Do you know what I mean? But I also am sensitive and very aware that is a kind of a psychological thing for some artists to get over within that particular scene.
Yeah.
You know, and probably some other scenes. You know, success can be incredibly daunting.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of doing your thing and it's cool, and then suddenly it's like everyone paying attention to you and wondering what you're going to do next. It's like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well,
that's why everyone reacts in it in different ways. Some people absolutely embrace it, and that's all they want to do. And other people kind of almost run in the opposite direction, flip up their style, and kind of go and hide in their comfort zone, and that's also fine.
Yeah, I think what it is that I think a lot of people dream when they're first starting writing music. Maybe I can only speak for myself, but you dream to be doing it as a living, and then past that, you don't expect anything else, if you know what I mean. And then when it gets to that point where it's wild, let's use Camel Fat for an example. Like, what they had done in the past was obviously extremely successful, and they were doing Camel Fat for years before Cola came on, and you signed Cola to Defected, and look where they are now. But I don't think you can ever imagine that ever happening. As much as you'd want it to happen, I don't think many people can imagine that happening.
Well, I think you can want it to happen. Totally. I don't think you can assume it will.
Yeah, totally.
Difference. Do you know what I mean? I think you know, you can of course want, you know, to have success and aspirations and, you know, things like that. But I think you just work hard and try and aim for that. To then kind of literally assume that is going to happen, I think is a different story, and that's where you're maybe setting yourself up for a fall. But if you absolutely believe in what you're doing and you're passionate and you're kind of giving it everything, like I kind of said, like about me personally, if you give it everything you have, then you should, you know, then great. Whether it, you know, success is successful or fails, you gave it everything.
Yeah.
You know, what else could you have done?
Totally. No, yeah. So going back to the question, when did you in your career get to the point where you're like, I want to take this, I want to be able to go from this to bigger?
Well, weirdly, again, I hate kind of coming back to Camel Fat, but obviously through that process, you know, the record was a huge success.
Yeah.
It did get nominated for a Grammy, so went to the Grammys in New York. It was nominated for an Ivor Novello. Like, went to that, you know, you just kind of see a bigger world out there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was then kind of slightly challenging for me to then just kind of go back and kind of start again and just kind of do things that are a bit smaller. Don't get me wrong, very, very passionate about all of that stuff, but it just felt a little bit less inspiring.
Yeah.
And, you know, my thing was I just wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to leave my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn. I wanted to be terrified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a lot. It was on a lot of levels. Do you know what I mean? That particular record and the experiences associated with it just kind of opened the door slightly, but I was keen to kind of walk through. I needed to just jump into the darkness and see where I landed.
No, I respect that.
It was all quite. It took about 2 years of building up to it because I hate stuff like that, but but I had to do it. So
what's it like to be literally like, you're the man, this is putting a lot of pressure on you, and I know you put a lot of pressure on yourself, but you're literally the man that can make someone's career to a certain extent.
It's, you are and you're not. The artist makes their own career. I'm just the person that maybe helps you.
Yeah, but we all know that, like, how much a lot of artists rely on record labels, right? Nowadays, not so much, but there's do you see what I'm saying? It's like, let's say Camel Fat. I don't want to talk about them the whole podcast, but let's say Camel Fat. Yeah, as much as we love you, but like, again, they're from that record that you was like, yeah, let's do it. Their life completely changed, and I know you're just a part of the puzzle, and everything else past that, it was all of it's down to them, but you're still the part that record could have come out and on a label that didn't necessarily have as big of a.
But that's just fate and butterfly effect and sliding doors and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, ultimately the decisions you make are the decisions you make, and you could have made different ones. Other people could have made different ones, and we'll never know what those alternative paths are like. I do actually think about that quite a lot, but there's just no answer. Like, there are certain things where I'd love to know if I'd have done that record instead of someone else, would I have done it as well? Because I remember I really tried and went really hard for like Duke Dumont Need You 100% years ago. Like, and have been really close with like Adam Duke ever since. Like, but I never did that record.
Yeah.
So Ministry of Sound did it, and they put it to number one.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever would have put that record to number one.
Yeah.
So I'm actually very happy for him and his big picture,
totally.
His career ever since, that record went there. But then again, there's also other records that I was maybe going after that someone else got. But I absolutely think that I probably would have done a better job. Or mate, there's just so much kind of like little twists of fate. It really is like little butterfly effects. It's like you've just got to be super open and tuned in to all that kind of stuff. It's like literally like an artist I've just ended up signing for a multi-album deal kind of came about through like a manager that I just really liked the guys. We just started hanging out. I mean, he kind of played me something. I was just like, oh wow, this is really exciting. Like, meet the guy. It just spiraled. It just came from like a little spark, just because I kind of like developed a relationship with someone about something totally unrelated 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But then led me to that point now where I'm now working with this artist.
That's mad.
So it's like all of this stuff just comes from anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I just try and be kind of tuned into that reality and be sensitive to it and open to it, and the opportunity, and something that's exciting can literally come from anywhere and anyone, and and just try and have relationships that open as many doors as possible for those opportunities to come my way.
Totally.
If that makes any sense at all.
No, I think it's just
I talk about this stuff in like quite weird ways.
No, I dig it, because you're right, and at the end of the day, I think it kind of comes down to almost that luck type of thing as well. Is that
there's luck involved, but there's also not. It's like, these relationships are carefully managed. You can have something great walk through your door, but you still got to know it's great and act on it. Ultimately, again, from an A&R's point of view, it's very different to, like, say, being a DJ or a radio presenter or something like that. Like, say 20 records are put on a table. As a DJ, you can pick up and play any of them, like, from your point of view, and kind of just do some stuff to see if it works. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. Radio, exactly the same. So from a record label point of view, if I want to do anything with any of those records, every single one of them comes with a deal, a negotiation, a relationship, like money up front, risk, all of that stuff. So my calls are a lot more considered and loaded, obviously, both kind of creatively, financially, etc. So, I have to know what I'm doing and why.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. And I think people forget, I think artists forget about that. And also people forget about that the label, most label, especially in the situation where you're at now in like a major, that there's a lot of, it's business at the end of the day. This is a business. It's a passion project, but it is also a business. And
the way I kind of look at it is like, there's two kind of pillars that I'm always kind of trying to be aware of, right? Commerciality and cultural relevance.
Yeah.
And like, they're the two things. So if I'm doing something, is it culturally relevant or is it commercially relevant? If it's kind of neither, then why are you doing it? And again, another kind of example is like, you've got records that are all heart, you've got records that are all head. All head is like, I'm just doing this because I think there's really good business in this.
Yeah.
All hearts, I just fucking love this record.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are kind of in between. So it's just kind of knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah.
There might be certain records, like going way back, Storm Queen looked right through.
Yeah.
The original deal on that was not good for the label I was at the time. Like, we just were insanely passionate about that record. We just loved it.
Yeah.
And we spent a fair amount of money getting it, and it lost a lot of money for quite a long time. And then MK's remix kind of 2 years later became good, #1 record.
Yeah.
But we signed it for all the right reasons, and it just happened to kind of, not through chance, like, don't get me wrong, like, there was campaigns and stuff behind the scenes to kind of amplify, but also, like, Mark was just having a moment at that time. It was a proper planets aligning thing. But ultimately we wouldn't have signed a record if we didn't absolutely love it. Like, we signed it for the original record, not for Mark's. That didn't exist.
Yeah, it didn't.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, so for me as a business, I'm looking at it as a business, but your consumer certainly isn't.
No.
They're looking for, like, what they want to hear, and not everything that you want to hear is commercially successful, but it can also be incredibly important.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to hit this really interesting balance between both sides of it. And it's not easy, but, I kind of try and do stuff that I think it just has to speak to you in some way, like whatever I do, I hope.
No,
to me anyway.
I like that. I like that a lot. So with regards to actually, like, being an A&R, how much of it is you going out and finding the records, or the records coming to you?
Well, this was the interesting thing about moving on from where I was, is Defected had built up this incredible brand, this incredible community, this incredible events business. So it was very much becoming like a destination label for people.
Yeah.
A lot of artists would kind of look at that and go, I want a piece of that.
Yeah.
There's a machine there, like through the radio shows, socials, etc., that amplifies a piece of music right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So it's almost like making, the brand itself gives a certain level of pre-promotion, which is really invaluable in today's market. And then on top of that, all DJs want gigs.
Yeah.
And here's a brand that's, doing 200 plus shows a year.
Yeah.
Can I do a couple of those, please? So in that environment, a lot of music did come to you, which was amazing in some ways, also like an absolute nightmare in other ways, just from time management, because I'm kind of one of those idiots that does try to listen to every single thing that I get sent, even if I reply to you like 8 weeks later, I did get to it.
Yeah.
But there may be a significant delay sometimes. So there was a certain amount of that, but then I was also going out and getting stuff. In moving, that luxury was totally removed.
Yeah.
So it was very much go out and just get amongst it and find stuff. Now it's kind of starting to flow back in a little bit more, but initially it was just like I just had to go out there and just shake the trees and see what came out.
Is that exciting?
Yeah, fucking terrifying and all, but exciting.
There's something about it. There's something for me. There's something about going out and finding, and like once you've found something that you absolutely believe in, it's like, this is amazing. It must be such a nice feeling when you get that record and like, yes.
No, definitely. But again, like I kind of said earlier, like everything comes from different places. I never quite know where something's going to come from.
Yeah.
So as much as I was like going out and kind of, shaking the trees, or what, for want of a better phrase, like, this artist that's forthcoming that I'm insanely excited about came through a meeting with a manager I had a relationship with. I was just like filling my diary with interaction. That was the most important thing. Constant interaction with people. Like, because you just never know, as I say, you just never know where it'll be like, oh, have you heard about that kid? Or like, oh, I've just signed this artist, or you should look at them, or you go to a gig and you hear a tune. It's just like, just literally never know where that next thing you're going to want is going to come from. I mean, like the first thing that I kind of really signed, like that Alan Fitzpatrick and Patrice Rushen, haven't you heard thing? Like I was looking, I kind of was aware of it because it was being played like on Radio 1 a bit. And then a guy called Tom from Your Army, who's like, was a club promo guy on that, like sent a message saying, this record's really doing great bits. Like, you should have a look at it. And I was like, oh, no, I don't know. And then he like emailed back a week later and he's like, it's still doing bits. I was like, yeah, do you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
And like, so then picked it up, and it's done well. And that was but it just came from, it didn't come from
organically,
a normal source. It just came from like just whatever. So it's just like I just try and maximize all those interactions. And thank you, Tom, by the way.
Big ups to Tom. I also think, because going back to that brand thing, FFRR, as much as the like heads know, it's been a great record label for years, but I feel like
33 years.
Yeah, I feel like the brand of FFRR kind of like went a little bit under the carpet for a while, and I think since you've taken it back, or since you've started working there, it's kind of come to the fruition where it's finding its feet again. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. Labels do this.
No, not at all. I mean, look, it's an absolute. I mean, but its heritage is a huge part of why I was interested to work there.
Yeah.
Like when I didn't know where I was going when I left Defected. I just decided I was leaving, but I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, I have a certain amount of time to figure that out, and if I can't find a job in that period, that's kind of on me.
Yeah.
So it was like that was the proper leap into the unknown.
Yeah.
And then I ended up like having a lunch with someone like literally 3 days after that, and this opportunity was put on the table, or kind of like mentioned, and I was just like, ooh. And then I kind of stopped looking, because I was like, shit, it's actually like this kind of ticks every box that I could want, because it was kind of like leaving my comfort zone, opportunity to do other things outside of the area, but then also a huge part of what I learned at Defected was brand related, and the power of a brand to coincide working with music. And obviously FFR absolutely has that incredible heritage. But I also agree with the point that it may be look, it's very hard to keep a brand at the top of its game for like 30 plus years. And nothing but absolute love and respect to Pete Tong for everything that he did
100%.
with that brand. It's absolutely iconic. But I think I think he also would maybe think that a fresh energy was needed. He stepped back and is now doing amazing things over at Sony with 360. So so I think maybe he felt that was a good time for him to kind of go and do something new, and more power to him. So my strategy with it was exactly what you kind of said. I just wanted it to be visible again. So that was why it was really important when doing like Alan's record or the Eats Everything record, but they were like the old logo house band. So it's just like, just make that visible again. That was all I kind of, don't get me wrong, I love the records. Obviously want those records to be as successful as they possibly can, but they're also serving a dual purpose for
me. Totally.
You know what I mean? It's like and also by working with Dan and Alan, they have platforms. So this is what I'm saying when I'm thinking about like a lot of things when I'm doing all of these things. So as well as the music being fantastic and something I absolutely want to back and promote and be associated with, they are also essentially helping to reestablish the visibility of a brand.
No, totally. And
you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, so, I saw what you did, and that's why I kind of brought it up, because it was like that classic FFRR logo is like,
and this brings me on to the next stage of it as well. So like once I kind of got that and just reestablished that here we are, we're in business and we mean it, and we're getting amongst it, and we are a good home for your music if you fancy releasing with us. That's kind of stage one. Stage two is then essentially there's going to be a rebrand in the very near future that completely updates the visual identity across the board of the label. So the next step is we're back and we really fucking mean business. You know what I mean? And here's kind of what we've got and why. And like, it's it's been an insane amount of work for like for the last 6+ months actually.
I can imagine,
to kind of get to this point, both musically, because obviously it's great to have something that looks good. If the music shit, then literally no one on earth will give a fuck. So the music has to kind of match the rest. And then also kind of trying to find these acts that define the new identity of a label. Because that's really important as well. So and my kind of, when I was trying to work out what I wanted to do with the brand, I just went and looked at the history. So it's like, it was the home of, Armand Van Helden, You Don't Know Me, amazing house record. And my reference for that was like So Eats Everything Honey kind of sit with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It sits in that, like, but then also it has like Goldie, Timeless, Orbital, Belfast, like Salt Pepper Push It, like I mean, there's just so much, and it was so broad musically. It's annoying. Like there's so much. So it was like, okay, I kind of went back and like pulled up like landmark records, landmark artists, and then tried to go like, who's today's equivalent of these acts in these musical lanes, and it's really broad. You know, like Shy FX was putting out music on FFR. It's like it done pretty much everything apart from maybe like grime in the history. Like Brand New Heavies were on it, like Asian Dub Foundation, All Seeing Eyes. Like it's really broad when you go back. So that's what I want it to be again, is a really, really broad musical home. But like I kind of said earlier about, you don't do the handbrake turn. Because I think right now it's probably most associated right at this moment in time for more house leaning music. So okay, let's keep that kind of running, but then at the same time, let's
look elsewhere.
Show wider things bit by bit, and also like finding those kind of acts that are hopefully seminal and literally like kind of genre defining or game changing, don't just appear every day. I mean, I'd love to have 6 of them sitting here right now, but you know, I think I found one, but I'm hoping I find a lot more.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Because when I started my label, it's kind of, I think the perception from the public is, oh, you're going to be releasing what you write as an artist. And for me, starting the label, it was actually like, that was never my goal. And I've always wanted to kind of turn it into more of a multi-genre label where I can work, where I can learn how to work artists and learn how to run a record label that doesn't just serve house and techno, if that makes sense. And I think it doesn't happen in the like independent side of things so much anymore. Don't get me wrong, there's some amazing independent multi-genre labels. But I think it's, like you said, you can't do that handbrake turn. You can't just be like, okay, I'm releasing a hip hop record, I'm releasing a drum and bass record, or I'm releasing this artist and it's an album and it's just piano music. I think it's just about the whole build up of the brand and doing it the correct way. And once you I think
it's about working out what you want to say and what you want to achieve, and then kind of working backwards about how you're actually going to do that. I mean, like my model, or not my model, but you know, I can't help but be inspired by someone like Richard Russell with Excel.
I was about
to say they started out. Yeah, I mean, look, I think, you know, I'm certainly not going to be alone in that.
Yeah.
But his thing, you know, starting out kind of doing dance, you know, obviously hugely successfully with a Prodigy.
Yeah.
But obviously doing kind of like, you know, loads of seminal rave records and amongst it all. But then, excuse me, it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
But he, you know, gets to the point where he's doing, you know, White Stripes and, you know, obviously Adele.
Yeah.
It's very obvious. But, you know, but the musical output on that was so broad on that label, but always exciting. I mean, I think Excel's thing, it just became like a stamp of honor. Like if Excel signs you, you're shit hot.
Yeah.
Like genre irrelevant.
Yeah.
But that's like 20 years to that
totally.
point.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to prove yourself and kind of build to that and just have those acts. But I mean, like, I'm sure he wasn't sitting there kind of going, oh, I think this is going to do this. It's like, I think he just was doing stuff that he really, really, really believed in and was absolutely passionate about. I mean, I bought his book, but I haven't read it yet. That's next on my list, but
I've done it. It's good.
Yeah. I've heard nothing but good things. I just need to find a minute to get stuck into it. But that's definitely my next proper sit down read, because I just know there'll be a few gems in there that I'll steal.
Yeah, I listen to the audiobook. I can't stand reading.
That's not a bad
because he did it as well. So it was him.
Yeah, and I saw something where he's like getting people like his dad doing a bit, and like the artists saying their bits and stuff, which I love.
And there's like Keith's in there, and there's like a lot of artists in there that he kind of signed that talks their part in it. So it's a beautiful thing. So is that the plan that you're kind of going to move forward with FFRR and be like more of a broader label?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I want it to be like a broad church for exceptional talent, but it's probably within the dance and electronic world.
Yeah.
But that's a really, really wide world.
Of course, yeah.
But the thing is, if something comes along that just I can't ignore.
Yeah.
I want to get it to the point where that could live on there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, you know, also from an artist's point of view, you're entrusting someone with your career. And if it's like, you know, if they're a singer-songwriter, doesn't, you know, I might love them, but they might just be like, well, why should I be signing here? Especially if it's competitive as well.
Yeah.
And I may be, you know, battling in a deal against like Universal or Sony or whatever. You know, I have to kind of be realistic about exactly where I'm standing in the hierarchy at that moment in time. Don't get me wrong, if I've, you know, if things have gone right and I've got acts, you know, smashing it in different areas, that those conversations become that little bit easier. But, you know, the artist, I think, needs to trust that you're also going to be a safe home for their art. And I think that within dance and electronic, that's more quantifiable than necessarily outside of that genre at this moment in time. But also, like, in the meantime, I also am like a senior A&R for Parlophone, which obviously covers that completely.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I'm signing or working on signing some stuff there for the moment, but it will be Parlophone, not FFRR.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting and exciting.
No, I can imagine.
Scary as well.
Because I've worked with a few pop people, and I was in the studio with some like pop people the other day, and it's just a very different mindset. And I love it. It kind of excites me because I see it from my side of things, where it's like, this has to be a really good dance floor record. This has to work straight.
They're like, this has to be a global hit.
Yeah, straight up. And
look, totally. The thing is, it's like, its scale of ambition is one thing, which I find really exciting. It's like, I want this to be fucking huge.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting. And also, like, it's really, 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 really hard to make a pop record.
Really hard.
I know it look like, the thing is, to the outside looking in, it looks really easy. And people kind of take the piss about, like, you know, when you see, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody written by like 4 people, and then like this other record written by 26 people.
Yeah.
Those kind of things are always quite led, because often it might have 3 samples in, which each have 4 writers. Like, so ignore all of that shit. Like, those things don't tend to be the truth. But also, like, to go and set out and actually try and make something like that is really hard, because there's thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people trying to do that and absolutely failing.
Yeah.
It is not easy to write a pop record when you're actually trying to. It is really, 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 really hard.
It is. Yeah.
So, like, more power to the people that play that game, because it is an incredibly tough game.
And it's not. It's also the case is that once you're writing pop records, you have to keep writing hits. Once you've written a hit, you have to keep writing hits, and you have to keep.
It depends who you are. I mean, if you're the artist, like, as in you're fronting the project. But if you're a producer, you can be flexible. You can do other things. Like, of course, you know, if that's your core business is writing pop records, but that's not stopping you going and making anything you want.
Yeah, I mean on an artist side of things. Aside. I mean on an artist side. Yeah, no, look,
if but again, it's like what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, if you're a pop artist and, you know, your first thing goes, or you're in the mix, and you want a career,
gotta keep going.
Gotta keep going. Yeah, it's hard to kind of pivot, but again, it just depends who you are and what you're trying to achieve. You know, every single career path is different.
No, I totally agree. So, with regards to, I don't know where I was going to go with that.
With regards to, with regards 3, 4. Sorry.
So yeah, records. I want to talk about records. Obviously you signed Camel Fat Cola, but what are the records that you are like, I'm really proud I signed that? Obviously you signed a lot of records, and it's not belittling everyone else that you sign in just because you say 1 or 2, but like, what was the record that you're like, I'm really proud that I like believed in this? And
that's put me on the spot, and also my brain has just gone totally blank. Like, mate, I Shazam things I've signed. I'm like, I really like this. Really? What's that? Oh, I signed it. Shit, mate, it's really bad. The good thing is, I'm like, this thing's sick. Oh, I did it. Shit,
that's hilarious.
Look, it's been, you know, I've been doing this for quite a while.
Yeah,
like, that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. And there, you know, there's a reasonably high level of output as well over the years. So I'm caveating that ever so slightly.
What was?
I mean, look, every record's kind of different, you know, because the thing is, I also know the entire journey of a record and all the characters involved and a lot of like the pain and heartache behind the scenes and, you know, the ups and the downs.
Yeah.
So it's like my kind of experience and association with a lot of these titles is very different to anyone else's.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like I kind of look at certain things. I just remember that manager or that artist or the drama or like the thing that was said no to or the battle that, you know, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So it's just it's very hard to quantify. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's records. I mean, every record was done for a reason. Like, there was always something that I loved about it. So, you know, there's very few that I kind of look back on and go, oh, geez, we won't talk about that one. There are definitely a few, but
the one record you signed for me, I do that about spandex every day.
I'm not going to say nothing, but do you know what? Like, I still see my thought process with that one. It was, I think I even said to you at the time, this will either be absolutely huge or absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like, there's no middle ground with a record like that.
No.
It's like, it's going to be Marmite. It's either going to absolutely catch people's appeal, like, or you know.
Yeah.
But I think those records are good to do as well. You know, you got to take risks.
Yeah.
You got to do stuff that you know. I'd hope it didn't cause any, you know, you or I any harm, like long term.
Not at all.
You know what I mean?
Just with myself, I think it caused more harm with myself than anything else. But
the only thing I would take back is the video. Like, if I could take that.
No one's seen it, mate.
Oh, did we never put it out?
No, we never put it out, thank God.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, we never put it out.
I just had flashbacks of that.
I remember filming that video and was like, okay. I don't know whose idea that was as well.
It wasn't mine.
No, it wasn't mine as well.
I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but it definitely wasn't mine.
No, me neither. Good times. Okay,
I'm so glad that ever came out.
Oh, mate, it's awful. We should try and find it though.
No, let's absolutely not. I don't need to see that again.
Who was that guy?
I don't know. I feel like you need to slightly contextualize for your listeners what this was.
True.
Otherwise, you know, we're just cringing about something that everyone's just like, what?
So I signed.
How would you describe it? It was like this really awful, like, overweight dude that just got was wearing a spandex thing that was far too tight, obviously, you know, on the realms of grotesque.
Yeah.
Like, just what was he like on the tube and dancing at people and stuff?
Yeah.
You know, it was meant to be funny, but unfortunately, like, the casting of the dude just made it creepy as hell.
It was really creepy, and it was like a summer's day in London, so it was kind of busy.
You could smell him through the screen.
And he had to change.
So, yeah, anyway,
he had like multiple spandex suits. So he had like the pink Power Ranger one, and then had like
wasn't
the Spider-Man
it meant to be
one.
like a kind of shit superhero or something?
Yeah.
Anyway,
it was...
there you go. You can fill in the gaps from there.
Yeah.
I'm all for a concept, but you know, sometimes it doesn't work out quite how you imagined it.
Definitely.
Even though this wasn't my concept.
Definitely not. No names. Talk about output with regards to the difference in output on Defected, where you're releasing a lot every week, I can imagine, or however, I don't know. But compared to like a major, are you like listening to that Richard Russell book? They were like let's say, for instance, like Young Turks, where they literally sign one artist or two artists a year, and they will literally put everything into that artist. How does it work with you guys on FFRR with kind of the amount of output?
My thing is like, I see both sides. So Defected, you know, because of the number of labels involved in it, even though each label wouldn't necessarily be releasing, you know, a huge amount of output, there was also quite a lot of labels. Yeah. So therefore that became a certain level of output. So there was a pretty high tempo there.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That was great. That made a lot of sense. The majors, it's a bit of a, you know, but also, I see the Young Turks thing where it's just all about finding that singular, unique talent and making sure that project is the best it can possibly be. I don't love either.
Yeah.
I quite like being in between, because so yes, I want to put out records that I absolutely like 1,000% believe in, but I also know through experience, but I can really be surprised.
Yeah.
You know, where I kind of like thought something was going to do X and then it goes on to do Y, and that was never what I expected. And it goes both ways, as in it could be exponentially more successful or less successful than I kind of imagined. So my thing is like, I kind of want to be putting out stuff that I think is good on a relatively consistent basis, because I would like to have the opportunity for things to surprise me.
Yeah.
Positively, you know, or negatively. That's, you know, that's part of the course. But I think the more opportunity you have out there, the more likely something is to happen. Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
definitely.
And I don't mean that like flippantly, as in like it's spread betting, but you know what I mean? It's like, I think, you know, as long as you're putting things out that you do want to be putting out. If you're just filling the schedule for the sake of it because you think something might work, that's a different thing. I'm not talking about that. I'm just kind of like, I like the idea of having a certain amount of output out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, I have expectations for everything, but some things may exceed.
Yeah.
But I've got to put it out to find out.
No, definitely. Are you ever like super shocked that you're thinking like this record is going to do really well, and then some, like, I think with music, it depends on what's actually happening everywhere else in the world as well. And what else is coming out. Because like, let's say for instance, like Calvin's got a new record out one day and you put a record out that day, and you might have got, let's say, Essential New Tune, Pete Tong Essential New Tune, or hottest record in the world. But because Calvin is putting a record out, he's going to get it, if you know what I mean. Is there like a big amount of planning behind that you guys do where you're like, okay, we need to...
Yeah, you can get a certain amount of visibility on stuff like that. And you obviously try and avoid something that you know is going to, you know, or is more likely to take precedent.
Yeah.
I mean, I've literally moved something recently because, you know, another act that is exponentially bigger had to move their thing to the same date. And I just doesn't make any sense to literally sit there and compete on that same day. So I'll just nudge mine back a week or pull it forward a week or whatever. So I'm definitely mindful of that kind of stuff. And then, sorry, remind me, but for the rest of the question, sorry. What were we talking about?
I forgot.
We were talking about tempo of output. And then it's kind of watching out for like other people, but there was kind of a bigger point to that, rather than like, you know, scheduling conflicts.
I can't remember.
Me neither.
Dude, it's been a long week.
It's probably quite a good one.
It was as well.
It's probably quite a good.
It was about output.
What was it? It was a good one.
Oh my god, brain fart, people! Welcome to the Will Clarke podcast.
Double brain fart. Look, in my defense, it's like 8:30 or whatever on a Sunday night.
I know, it's like
I've got an excuse.
Yeah, same. You've got a kid as well.
So I'm still thinking you're like on LA time. Yeah. Sorry, man.
I don't even live in LA when I'm in America as well. This is the thing.
Do you live in that time zone?
Pardon? No, I live in Detroit.
All right, I need to shut the fuck up, man.
Yeah.
Jesus.
But it was
I didn't know that. What the fuck?
The question was like about the amount of output you put on as a label and how that affects you as the label.
Oh, like your campaigns and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you kind of, in my head, like literally everything I do has its own campaign.
Yeah.
You know, it's like what I said really, really early, like about the kind of conversation between your expectations of your marketing team. Like this record is a club record. Yeah. It's about positioning, and I think the best it's going to do is a little bit on DSPs, and you know, Beatport will be well, and it'll live there. That's what we were talking about. I've just remembered. So how the world changes.
Yes. Yeah.
Campaign.
Yeah.
There we go. We're back. We're back on track, mate. And look, I've experienced it massively firsthand, along with everyone else in the world with COVID. So the whole world changed overnight.
Yeah.
And I'd signed records, you know, a lot of the output up until almost now was probably signed pre-lockdown, pre-COVID, etc. So, you know, a record like Eats Everything Honey, Diplo on My Mind. Actually, Diplo is a really, really good example. So that record, for whatever reason, we just really, really struggled to get on radio.
Yeah.
But it was just absolutely smashing it in all other areas. Solid at specialist, but the next step was kind of trying to take it to daytime, but we just really struggled for whatever reason. And my next strategy in a normal world would have been through the remixes from like Purple Disco Machine, which was absolutely flying at the time, MK, which was just a perfect kind of festival club tune, and the original. That vocal just would have been played in some capacity at probably 90% of festivals for the whole summer in the UK and Europe. Within genre, obviously, it would have had some presence. I would have expected. And my thing was, I could have taken all of those plays, footage, etc., and fed that back into radio and told a bigger story. Eats Everything Honey, very same thing. Like it's a club listen. It's not a passive Spotify listen that unless you've already had that contextualized in some other way. As in, you heard it in the club and you're like, I love this record, and you've got that association, you hear it at home and you're kind of taken back to that moment. So those records, I think, because of the nature of them being a bit more club heavy, like have really, or not have really suffered, but did suffer in some way by the world just straight up changing. You know what I mean? But there was no totally. That's just reality, unfortunately. It's a shame, because those are kind of ones where I can kind of see what could have been, maybe. And with Eats Everything, like there's still life there. I still think there's loads more we could do with it that I'm working on. But on the Diplo one, it was like, but it is what it is.
The whole COVID thing is kind of, it's changed how we release records in the dance music industry massively.
It definitely is challenging, because it's dance music. A huge amount of these records live is in club and live. That obviously no longer exists, or it doesn't exist at this moment in time, and certainly not in the same way as it did. And I think right at the very start, I kind of was like, what do I do with the schedule? Like, do I when we had no kind of context as to how long this was going to last. Everyone thought this was just 2 weeks or something. And like six months later, we're still here in exactly the same kind of position. Obviously, with some more normality in the mix. But I kind of hit a point where it's just like, just got to keep going. And know that some things are going to suffer, but I'm just going to keep putting out music. It's kind of mad not to, because we have no visibility on when this is going to end, if it's going to end, and what the world is like on the other side. So it's just adapt and evolve time, and just get amongst it, because I'd rather just change and embrace the reality, because I can't affect it. So I just need to be positive and make the most of it.
Definitely.
I have no other choice. I think if you try and kind of go, oh, what if, it's like, it doesn't help you.
Do you think there's a way to release like club dance music, electronic music, in a sense without the clubs, and kind of allow it to get it to a point where it can still be extremely successful? Or do you think it is at the point where you need the clubs to get a record further? Because for me, like I had Hallelujah that came out, and Hallelujah had done a year of the clubs, so it kind of worked pretty well for me.
Yeah.
But then my next record is a record with MK, and it hasn't seen the clubs in my sets, but it's not seen the clubs in anybody else's sets. And it was supposed to come out in July, and we've moved it till October. So it's like, but still, it's kind of, I guess,
I mean,
you don't know.
With that specific one, obviously you have the benefit of MK.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is what I mean about when you look at the bigger picture. So obviously MK is like a kind of very known, quantifiable artist proposition. He's going to help get kind of ears on the record, just through the nature of who he is as an artist, and his kind of monthly listeners on Spotify or whatever it may be. So that's going to help you radio, etc. So I'd still think that there's a chance for a record. But that's the thing, you have to kind of know where you are starting these things from. If you're just making a tech house roller and no one knows who you are, it's going to be harder for you to cut through at this moment in time. Just because how are people going to discover you or this record? And unless the record's like are truly exceptional and stands out, or whatever it may be, it still absolutely is possible. Like John Summit, Deep End, great record, but cut through from an act that, you know, wasn't at that level, but this record's just absolutely cut through. Again, benefiting, I think, from the, you know, the Defected platform that allowed it to cut through the environment. But the record also absolutely stands out.
It's a good record,
you know, the vocals was used in a load of TikTok videos as like a kind of hip hop thing.
Yeah.
So it had a familiarity. So there's all these elements that mean it kind of, that's why that one cut through.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So I can kind of trace back why that record kind of was able to do what it did. And that's fantastic. So it is still possible. But that was really encouraging. I was like, oh, thank God this can still happen.
It was. And I guess I spoke about this with Huxley on the podcast, actually. And it was like, I almost kind of feel sorry for people that are small, like let's say, for instance, with John, if you know what I mean, where that's his biggest record so far. And I just hope that can carry on until after lockdown and kind of progress into a career afterwards. Because let's say, for instance, if clubs were open now, like, it would be great for him.
Yeah, he'd be smashing it.
Yeah, be killing it.
No, for sure. I mean, the thing that's interesting to me is like this bit of a tangent, but I'm really, really intrigued. It's like obviously loads of fantastic music is being put out during this period.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to know what people are playing when they come back. Is like, are you still just playing the thing that came out last week, or are you digging back through the last 6 months of amazing output? Because you've got so much amazing material to kind of reach from that hasn't had this kind of club opportunity. And I find that bit really exciting. I have no idea what the answer actually is. I'd hope that people are kind of like, you know, just digging through this wealth of amazing material from all over the place, from the entirety of this period, and obviously plus, you know, everything else as well. I mean, the good thing about it all is I think a lot of people are using this time to create. You know, people are at home, they have more time on their hands. You know, the road is quite often a negative when it comes to content creation, you know, music production, content creation. You know, I know that some people are also finding this a very challenging period on a lot of levels, like mentally and, you know, physically, and that's not necessarily a great place for wanting to make music.
No.
You know, some people are kind of changing what they're making because, you know, they're not in that club environment, so their head's not hugely there. So it's just a really interesting moment. But I do think that quite often through times of, you know, upheaval or stress, good art tends to come out of it. It might not be in different ways than you expected, but you know, I feel quite positive about things from that point of view.
I totally agree. The people that I've been kind of working with, and it's all been like really positive. And I know I've got, like, obviously we all know people that are struggling, if you know what I mean, inside the music industry and outside the music industry. But I do think we need things like this to happen sometimes to kind of shake you and be like, do something different or look outside the box. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's like, you don't just have to do that one thing, and you can try other things.
100%. And I think that's kind of what I was getting at to a certain degree when I'm kind of saying about you just have to deal with the reality of the situation. Whether you trust me, it's not what I wanted. I didn't want to kind of like, you know, make a big job move like this and then a couple of months in literally have like a huge part of how I deliver records to the world like pulled out from under my feet. And don't get me wrong, it was a massive head fuck and quite stressful, and you know, and this whole kind of just the whole dynamic has been challenging in a lot of ways, but you know, it's the same for everyone in different ways. So I think, you know, this whole period's been tough for pretty much everyone on the planet in some capacity. However, like, me being upset or moaning or whatever doesn't change a single bit of reality. So it's just like, okay, well, this is it for the foreseeable period. How am I going to make the most of it, and how am I going to adapt and still try and achieve the things that I want to achieve? You know, I'm not going to be right in a certain amount of it, but that's the mindset, you know, and as long as I'm kind of learning from each thing that I do, then it's still moving forward in a positive way, because no one's sitting there with all the answers.
I think that's the thing, is about accepting that you just have to change, and each time you change, you learn from it. I don't know if you've read the book Shoe Dog.
Yeah, literally, that was the last thing I finished.
Okay, so
it's an amazing book.
It's unreal, isn't it? And
Yeah,
So
it's brilliant.
So anyone that's listening that doesn't know Shoe Dog, it's about how Nike was created, and the owner of Nike. I forgot his name. What's his name?
I've forgotten his name as well, which is terrible. It's a brilliant book. Like,
I've got to pull it up. Name. But anyway,
it's upstairs.
Shoe Dog, Phil Knight.
There you go.
Yeah. So but you don't realize how much shit they went through to get to where they're at now. And I think it's something that I always end up talking about on the podcast, but it's like people just think sometimes you wake up and it's like, it's done. The answers are there, but it never is. And you have to adapt to every day. Something might happen. Something might happen in your personal life. Something might happen with your family. Something might happen with your career, whatever. Something might happen, and it's going to mean you're going to have to change. And I think right now, it's not just happened to one person, it's happened to the whole fucking world.
No, totally. And the thing is also, like, everyone sees the successes. So that book is a great illustration. It's like, Nike, it's a multi-billion-dollar company or whatever.
Yeah.
It didn't just happen. It didn't just exist. It didn't just pop out of thin air.
Yeah.
That was like blood, sweat, tears, divorces, like missed birthdays. It's just like, it's everything. It's like the thing that I took from that is just like how kind of like on the seat of the pants it was. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
There were huge risks involved. It nearly all fell apart a few times, but he just had this true belief in not so much himself, which I found really refreshing. He was constantly doubting himself, I thought.
Yeah.
But he also really believed in what he was doing and really, believed in this thing.
Yeah.
And knew why he was doing it. He thought that, like, other people's trainers just weren't as good. There were innovations to be made and try these kind of mad things, but everyone else would kind of look at and go, well, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But he's just like, well, it does, and this is why, he cared. He was a shoe dog. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and when he met other shoe dogs, it was just like the people that are obsessing about like the composition of rubber because they want it to be better than the next guy.
Yeah.
Like, you see this finished product, they're seeing like 40 elements and hours in each, if not hundreds and thousands of hours in each tiny element. And music's the same.
Totally.
People hear the finished product, they don't hear the 26 versions, the 14 mix downs, 4 masters, like the rejected vocals, like the business dramas, like whatever it may be, like the negotiate. I don't see any of that. They just see the finished product. We see all of that and deal with it, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, package it nicely, and
exactly.
Here you go. Do you like going from that shoe dog? Are you that passionate about music when it comes to, especially with 100%. FFRR? Are you at the point where it's like, I'm fucking gonna do this?
Yeah, you can't do it any other way.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I can't really half-ass it or fake it. And don't get me wrong, that's also knowing that not every single day I'm going to be like at 1,000%.
Yeah.
It's like some days you literally sit there at the end of the day and like, what did I achieve today? It feels like nothing.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of life. You're just trying to kind of, as long as you're always trying to push things forward, and some days it works for you and some days it doesn't. But everything I'm doing, like, I really believe in and hope I'm doing it for a reason and have some kind of plan. All I can kind of try and do is, in a really considered way, present what I think is the best thing I can possibly present in the best way I can possibly present it at that moment in time. And then there'll be a certain point where the public either agrees that they think that's good or they don't. I have no control over that bit. I can kind of give it the best possible start I can, but beyond that, it's ever so slightly out of my control. Don't get me wrong, there are like things you can try and do to encourage, awareness, growth, but none of that stuff is ever going to break a record or actually make something a hit. So,
I totally agree.
It doesn't work like that.
It's the one thing that I've kind of learned over the years, where beforehand, for a lot of my career, I was like very precious of the music that I released after it had been released. And I think it was only maybe maybe 18 months ago to 2 years ago where I was just like, this music, when it gets released, is no longer my record. It's not my song.
It's the world's record.
It's everyone else's, and they can listen to it. They can choose whatever they want to think about it, and it's got nothing to do with me. It's just my name on the side, and it's like those love songs, isn't it? That were never love songs. That when the artist wrote it, and everyone thinks it's a love song, and it's literally about their goldfish or something like that. It's wild, but it truly takes.
But that's the charm of it all. I love that stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, that was a great. I mean, like, I kind of almost circling back a little bit to like the kind of output thing. Like, this is a story that I absolutely love from the Chocolate Puma guys, actually.
Yeah.
So like Good Men Give It Up, like that was a massive European hit. Like, sold a ton. Like, it was a really, really big record for them. And they literally made that record as like a jingle for their radio show. Like, and kind of like, it was sitting on their hard drive for ages. It was like, they didn't really think too much of it. But, they liked it, but they weren't like kind of losing their shit about it. And then they just had a label at the time. They're like, oh, fuck it, we should just actually put this out. Put it out, thought nothing of it, became like a really, really big hit for them. But the point was, like the bit that I kind of found was really, or that took from it, but was really interesting, is like on their hard drive, it could never achieve anything. In the world. They had no expectations of it achieving anything, but at least it had the chance to achieve something, and it did. But I was there's something about that I really, really like. And I don't mean that you should just like put everything that you've got on your hard drive out there, but you still have to kind of put yourself out there for opportunity to happen. If you kind of keep everything back, it never has a chance of happening in any way.
Well, it's kind of that full circle is about like the artist that you're signing at the moment. If you didn't put yourself out there and have that conversation in the first place and build that relationship, you wouldn't be where you're at now. And I think that at the end of the day, that is life, about moving forward and kind of building something out of your life, is that you have to put yourself forward.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a good way to end on that one, mate. I like that.
Deep.
Got deep. Before we end, how can people hear about FFRR? How can people hear about you? How can people get in touch with you if they want, et cetera, et cetera? What would be the best way?
Probably social media is probably the easiest one. Just I think like Instagram and Twitter is just at Andy Daniell with a surname spelled with 2 L's, which is actually how it's spelled. I'm not just being weird for socials. And FFRR, I think most of them are just like FFRR Records. I think I should probably know that. I should probably articulate that better, but I'm sure you can find them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm about. If you need me, you can find me.
Cool,
I
man.
don't hide.
Thanks for coming on, and good work with the label so far. I can't wait to hear what comes out in the future.
Pleasure, mate. Good to speak to you, man.
You too, mate. Look after yourself. Keep safe.
Nice one. All right.
Bye. And that is a wrap. I hope you enjoyed it. Big ups to Andy for coming on the show. Thank you to everybody that's listened. If you did enjoy it, please share, send it to all your mates, hit the like button, give us a review if you fancy. See you next week.